Morning.
Well, it looks like the commissioners have already started introducing themselves to each other, which is a good sign. So I'll call the meeting to order this morning. Welcome. It's 9:35, a little after our start time, but today is January 16th, and this is the January meeting of the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Waste Disposal Compact Commission, and welcome to everyone. And I see Mr. Salzman's here, the judge is here, Brandon Hurley is here, Linda Morris is here, Dick is here. Dick, are you going to be accompanied by another person from?
No, apparently not. She can't make it.
Okay. So counting ourselves, myself included, there's 6 of us, which means that 5 of us have to agree on anything before it can be done. And so we'll see how that goes. But fortunately, what's that? On rare occasions, yes. On rare occasions. There have been times that it's been done. But we do have a quorum, the commissioner here. Are there any, I know there are some representatives of some elected officials here. And Robert, go ahead.
Carlos Castañeda, Representative Long Burnham. I'm John Montgomery, also Representative Long Burnham.
Okay. Good to have you both here. Anybody else that's an official capacity representing elected official or elected official themselves other than the judge?
David Mintz, here representing Governor Cook.
Thank you. And Nate, it's good to meet you. Thank you for coming in today and watching us. And let me see, we have any members of the press here today? And for those of you who don't know, Mr. Croson, there's Jim Croson is just joining in. Karen Watkins is also with the Attorney General's office, and she's here. But introducing the press is something that I picked up, I won't tell you how many years ago, but it was when Gordon Fulcher was head of the Texas Water Quality Board, so it's been that long, and it's a practice he instituted, and I thought it was wonderful. So that's everybody, I think. And next item on the agenda, that's the first 3 items, so we're moving through. I'll just make a quick announcement. 2 of our people, at least, of the 6 of us here, have early flights today. So we may be working straight through to get through the agenda so they can depart to make their flights, because if more than one of them leaves, we will have to end the meeting anyway. And so that being said, fortunately, the agenda is fairly straightforward, and I know my remarks will be tailored to the fact that we want to get the meeting over with fairly quickly today. The next item on the agenda is item 4, public comment. Basically, this is for anybody who wants to come talk to us about anything, whether it's on the agenda or not. Of course, people here in the public also have a right to address us if they're recognized on individual agenda items. But this allows people to talk to us about anything on their mind that they want to say, and we can't take any action. We can only listen, but at least sometimes it's important to get those suggestions. So are there any members of the public in the audience who care to address us? We'll need some time limits, but we're willing to have it. Carlos, come on up.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Carlos Castañeda, Energy Policy Analyst for Representative Long Burnham. My comments today pertain to the presence of water above or barely below the red line, that is a layer of clay, red clay, in the WCS facility in Andrews County. Specifically, the presence of water in some of the monitoring wells that have been located nearby or even adjacent to the disposal sites at this facility. Now, water level reports provided by WCS over the last few months and obtained through open records requests last year show 3 things. 1, that continued pumping of water has been needed, which is understandable. The second, that some of the wells remain saturated after several months of pumping. And third, that operational difficulties in pumping have required the replacement of certain pumping systems. And for this reason, I simply propose the following. Because the state of Texas, by law, takes title to some of the waste disposed at this facility, it only makes sense to recommend some of the following. I request that WCS, in its quarterly reports, include an accounting of the cost of operating some of the water pumps and other costs associated with them, simply because thinking long term here, once if the state of Texas becomes responsible for this waste, it is simply appropriate for the state to know exactly what kind of costs in the long term it may be responsible for at this point in time. Now, as for the water, let me just note that I have been led to understand that such subsurface water is not groundwater connected to an aquifer, but rather old rainwater that has been collected over time. I'll accept that. Yet, regardless of where this water comes from, the fact of the matter is that the state of Texas would become responsible for addressing this issue at a later point in time. And thus, I simply think it's appropriate to include an estimate of what the costs may be. For the same reason, I also request that, if possible, that we receive at a later point in time this year an estimate of the subsurface accumulation of such water. That is, if some of this water that we're finding present near the disposal sites and near some of the casks is old rainwater that has been collected over a period of time, I simply would like to know how much water is accumulated over a 5-year period, a 10-year period, just so that we know what we're dealing with long term. Again, the waste that is being disposed here is meant to be protected for thousands of years, and so some long-term planning would be appropriate at this time. I thank the commissioners for their attention on this matter and am available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Castaneda. Further questions from the commissioner? We appreciate your comments, and we'll, I'm sure, in the appropriate time, we can't make decisions on it this morning.
Of course.
But we'll consider the best way we responding, some way to respond to concerns that you've expressed to us today. And it'll probably be, I'll just say this from based upon my own knowledge, we'll probably have to go to TCQ and depend upon their analysis and interpretation. And if we have questions there, we might ask them of TCQ. Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other members of the public who care to address us this morning?
I'm not a member of the public, but I want to bring this up in the front of the meeting so people can be thinking about it.
Okay.
I tried to get my normal room and found out that South by Southwest is here that week and not good.
Well, we're talking about the March meeting, and I understand, Judge, and you've raised this with Lee, and I told her that we'd talk about that today when we talk about the future meeting schedule.
Other guys that don't live here.
Yeah, I reported to Mr. Hurley, who normally stays in Temple anyway. He may be giving you a ride when you come down from there at the March meeting, but Lockhart has places too if you want to come all the way down and get some barbecue.
Well, actually, when I got off the plane, I wanted to go to Lockhart and get barbecue, but it was 9 o'clock, so every time I got there, they'd be closed.
That's true. It'll be closed at, they close at 8 o'clock generally, but some of them stay open a little later if you happen to be there and
I
other
just
people.
wanted to bring that up in the front of the meeting.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the
Talked
schedule.
about Evans and Andrews,
Yeah.
and that's still out there if you want
Right.
to.
All right, let me talk about, the next item on the agenda is revisions. This is the Rules Committee that we're looking at, and the schedule there was we had originally were planning a meeting in early January with brokers and processors in Tennessee, and the meeting had to be canceled because two of the people who were necessarily be involved, Mr. Saudick, and we had invited Mr. Salzman to also join us. Neither of them could make it on the schedule, and it turned out to be a good thing for several reasons. One is the weather was a disaster, and we would probably still be in Tennessee or driving back if we had gone up there at the time. And secondly, I couldn't have made it either. So we're now discussing a possibility of a rescheduled meeting, and we have a tentative date for that. Ms. Engel is going to talk about that. Unfortunately, it's a week that's convenient for everybody but me. So I may not be able to attend, but when that notion came up, because everybody is busy doing all sorts of things, that I said that I insisted that if it was convenient for Mr. Salzman, Ms. Morris, Dick, and Ms. Ing, that we could just go ahead and go forward with it, because they're the really smart people who are working on this anyway, and they can tell me what happens, and I don't need to be there. I've seen some of these facilities before. I'd love to see them again and see what the changes are, but as it stands now, If I can make it, I will, but we'll talk about doing it, and Lee will report what it is. Okay? You want to report now? Why don't you do that?
We're tentatively looking to have the meeting in the second week of April. I haven't contacted Phylotechnics with that to see if their facility is available, so it's still kind of a secret. Nobody tell Elizabeth until I call her. But I'm sure sometime that week we can make it work. We're also looking at doing some tours of facilities locally to see some of the processing and brokerage facilities in the area while we're there. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that second week begins with the date of April 14th, in case somebody is looking at the calendar right now. So that's tentatively it will be scheduled during that week. And like I said, I'm sure that everybody will be open to suggestions, have a good time. If somebody really insists that I should be there, then it'll have to be, I can meet separately with whoever wants to. Okay? That's item 5. Item 6 now is consideration and possible action on request for amendments to agreements for importation of low-level waste. And I'm going to ask Ms. Ng to talk about this for specific reasons. And go ahead, Lee.
One of the things I wanted to mention about these amendments, as we know, we have previously made a determination, if you will, that for amendments, I mean not agreements, amendments, if there's an increase in volume in curies, or if there's an addition of a waste type or class, that we use the same notice requirements that we have for import agreements, which, as y'all may recall, is 25 days notice and common in the Texas Register and on our website. That is not in rule. That is merely a decision that's been made. And what we have here, all 3 of the amendments that are in front of you today, Bionomics, Duke Energy, Tennessee Valley Authority, none of them have been posted for various reasons for the full 25 days. In the case, depending on how you count days, in the case of Bionomics, it's been posted for 9 or 10 days. In the case of Duke Energy, it's 23 or 24 days. And in the case of Tennessee Valley, it's been 9 or 10 days. I would put forth that none of these amendments are in any way substantive. And one of the reasons that we made the decision in discussions with the chairman to go ahead and put these on the agenda, even though the full notice that we have informally been using was not applied here, was to allow y'all the opportunity to talk about that, the notice requirements for amendments, if you like, give the applicants an opportunity to speak to it if you have any questions of them. I know that it is our plan to deal with amendment notice as part of our rulemaking, but the rulemaking isn't completed yet the issue is coming up now. So I just wanted to make those introductory remarks before you begin consideration of the amendments.
Thank you. And Lee and I did have a conversation about this, and this is primarily for the benefit of the Commission. We have been following the practice of just whenever there is an amendment to an existing agreement, treating the amendment, if it increases curies or the waste stream or the waste form, to say that we would like to give the public an opportunity, the same opportunity they would have to address on the initial amendment. There are lots of reasons to do it that way. The specific question that we probably face during the rules is, okay, what is the trigger point at which we say we have to do that, and which is the trigger point in which we say it's kind of a de minimis thing. But we haven't established that as rulemaking, and we have not established its policy. So we're just following the practice. And so the question is, we wanted to specifically point this out to the commissioners who are here to see if they, because we don't need to act on these, obviously, if full time of the notice hadn't been there. Lee, what notice has been given for these amendments other than posting in the register that we received?
They've been posted on the register and they have been posted on our website, both. And all the comments were due yesterday. So we gave it the maximum amount of notice that we could prior to this meeting.
And how much time was that?
In the case of Duke Energy, it was 23 or 24 days, depending on how you count days. And in the case of Tennessee Valley and Bionomics, it was 9 or 10 days.
Okay, that's the situation. So I wanted the Commission to be aware of this. We can proceed to discussions or we can have some other motion just to table this or whatever you all want to do.
Mr. Chairman, the technical committee has reviewed all three of these, and at the very least, I can let you know sort of what they're asking for, and I have at least a little bit of opinion, perhaps, on some of them with regard to whether they're substantive or not.
Okay. I'm willing to go forward with each agenda item as we would normally do, if that's the desire of the commission at this point. Mr. Sadek, is that okay? Okay. All right. The first one then would be the 6A Bionomics number 1-0032-02. This is an amendment. And Mr. Salzman.
The technical committee has reviewed a request for amendment.
Is your mic on, Joe?
Hello? It is on. It's on.
Okay, thank you.
Is it working?
I don't. Now, good.
So the technical committee has reviewed a request for amendment from Bionomics Incorporated. That's 1-0032-02, and that amendment was actually originally signed, I believe, November 1, 2013. In the amendment, Bionomics has requested that we add one isotope to their approved list. In this case, depleted uranium in the amount of 10 millicuries. If I understood correctly, the quasi issue regarding whether it's been posted long enough or not is related to volume or overall curies or waste form. In this case, it does not appear that their amendment request is asking for any of those. They're merely asking to keep the same total overall activity and that they be allowed to add one additional isotope. As the Commission knows, there's only 4 isotopes that we specifically ask information for on the application. This happens to be one of those. If it were any other isotope, there wouldn't even have to ask for an amendment, if you will. So, in my opinion, this is really more procedural than it is technical in that perspective. We need to track those because it's in our rule. We need to track those millicuries or microcuries, but that's really the only reason they need to ask for this amendment.
Okay. Are there Commission questions for Mr. Salzman?
What is depleted uranium all in our rules?
Well, it's uranium-238.
As opposed to 235, I suppose.
Correct.
Mr. McGuire, can I ask you a question about this? Is depleted uranium, how's that handled now under the Waste Control Specialist license? Obviously, they have to have permission from you guys under the waste acceptance criteria.
Yes, the license for the disposal site for the compact facility allows for the disposal of small amounts, and it prohibits the disposal of large amounts, and so the amount here is within the limits of what we consider small under that license, under the current license.
How do you determine whether an amount is large or small? What is the criteria that you use?
Well, I don't think I can quote the license condition, but it is in the license, the amount.
Mr. Janeka, thank you for coming forward.
What the license condition specifically says, the license shall not receive for disposal or dispose of waste streams containing depleted uranium in concentrations greater than 10 nanocuries per gram. Depleted uranium or similar waste concentrations less than 10 nanocuries per gram shall be disposed consistent with the provisions specified in the license condition 102.
Thank you very much. Mr. Salzman, does this application for this quantity meet that license condition?
The application does not specifically indicate the activity per gram. So I can't answer your question. I believe Mr. McCormick from Bionomics is here. Perhaps he can answer that.
Good morning, John.
Morning. How is everybody?
Fine. Welcome.
Thank you. And yes, you were right. You did not want to come to Tennessee. It was 10 degrees every day. John McCormick from Bionomics. These are exempt DU check sources from survey meters that we're collecting as part of the scatter roundup around the country. So normally, most people could probably throw them in the trash, but because we are collecting them and I have to report those, we're going to encapsulate them in concrete like we would our normal sealed sources, and the activity will be much less than 10 nanocuries per gram.
Okay.
There'll be no DU shielding, and I think that's when everybody sees DU, that's the immediate thing, the concern. There's nothing to do with DU shielding. It's DU check sources.
Yeah. I'm familiar with some of that DU shielding.
Yeah.
All right. Are there other quick commission questions on this application? I'm ready then for a motion, I guess.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from Bionomics 1-0032-02 to add depleted uranium as an authorized isotope that they can import in the amount of 10,000 microcuries. And there's no other changes to the agreement.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Mr. Sadek. Is there further discussion among the commission? Any more questions? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the vote, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Amendment is granted. Item 6B, Duke Energy Brunswick Nuclear Plant 1-0027-01. Mr. Salzman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an amendment request from Duke Energy Brunswick Nuclear Power Plant. That's 1-0027-01, and that amendment was signed December 18th, 2013. In this amendment request, Duke Energy is asking for an additional 4.9 cubic feet of capacity. So in terms of, are they asking for additional volume, the answer is yes, they are. In this case, the 4.9 cubic feet is relatively small compared to the original volume they were approved for, which I believe, if I can do the math in my head, was around 120 cubic feet or slightly over that. The reason for that they've indicated for their request for increase is that the actual packaging and containers that they're using to ship the waste are slightly larger than they had originally proposed. Hence, they need slightly more capacity or cubic footage to ship the waste. So.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Salzman about this particular application from the commission? Anybody in the audience want to comment on it? And again, I'll just note, for one of the things in the rules is that this is another one of those issues, the nuances and the subtleties that we should probably pay attention to when we're working on the rules. We're learning more each month as we go through this process. I don't hear any questions or comments, John, so I'm ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from Duke Energy Brunswick Nuclear Power Plant 1-0027-01 to add an additional 4.9 cubic feet of waste to their approved volume. That will increase the waste to a total of 125.2 cubic feet. There are no other changes.
All right. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Sadek again, seconded. And so, any further discussion or questions, Mr. Salzman or anybody else about or any discussion among the commission on this application? Hearing none, I'll call for the question and a vote. All those in favor of the motion to grant the amendment as requested and as stated, Mr. Salzman, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes, and the amendment is granted. Third, 6C, Tennessee Valley Authority, that's number 1-0031-02. Again, Mr. Salzman, and thank you, Mr. Salzman, for doing all this stuff.
The technical committee received and reviewed, let's see, I want to make sure I have the right one here. Received and reviewed an application for amendment from Tennessee Valley Authority, that's 1-0031-02, and that amendment was signed December 30, 2013. In this amendment request, TVA is asking that they be able to add 2 additional waste types or waste description to the materials that would be approved, and that is both compactable and non-compactable trash. And they're also asking that the expiration date be extended to September 31, 2014, which actually would be 1 month beyond the second year of disposal. So if we were to approve this, we would have to have a caveat that would where they would provide us how much waste they've disposed of through the end of August 31, 2014, so that we could track that additional volume between August 31 and September 31, because that would be in the 3rd disposal year.
Mr. Sadek.
It always makes me uncomfortable if they extend something to September 31.
That's what it says. I can only.
Well, maybe they know.
Maybe they.
Maybe they're going to remanufacture a leap year.
If we were to do this amendment, we would make September 30th the date.
We don't have a motion yet. We just have an explanation, so that's appropriate. Any other questions? And again, I'll note for the Rules Committee discussion that this has to do with the, and I'll say this for the generators and the brokers and the shippers out there, and as well as for WCS. The operational year concept is not something that we invented, and so it's present in our statute, so we have to take it into account. At the same time, we're trying to figure out a way during the rules process of being able to accommodate the fact that the actual schedules need sometimes to be adjusted associated with shipments for various reasons. And so we're really going to look for suggestions from those of you who are generators, brokers, shippers, and WCS about how to accommodate those things within the concept and the construct that we have to work with of operational years and accounting for the curies and volume during those operational years, particularly for the, in-compact stuff is not such a big deal, but the out-of-compact importation into the compact for disposal is a big deal. So with that being said, I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment from Tennessee Valley Authority 1-0031-02 to add compactable and non-compactable trash to the waste description, and that we extend the date to September 30, 2014, with the caveat that TVA must provide us an accounting of the waste that they ship on or before, or the waste that gets disposed, I should say, on or before August 31, 2014, so that we can account for any volume beyond that in the 3rd disposal year.
Is there a second? Mr. Sadek seconds as long as it's September 30th and not the 31st of the request. All right. Any further discussion about the motion or discussions or questions on it from the Commission? Any member of the public wish to comment about this? Seeing nobody wishes to comment and there are hearing no discussions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the amendment to Tennessee Valley Authority as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. The amendment's granted. That's item 6 on our agenda. Item 7, moving along, consideration and possible action on each of the following applications for agreements for importation of low-level radioactive waste. 7A, Aileron Nuclear Services, number 1-0054-00. Mr. Salzman.
The technical committee received and reviewed an application from Veolia ES Aileron LLC, and I'll refer to them as just Aileron. That was signed November 29, 2013, and officially received by the Commission December 1, 2013. And as the chairman has noted, that's 1-0054-00. In this case, Aileron is a broker who is a licensed waste collector, and they're requesting authorization to dispose of non-party low-level waste in accordance with the Act. Aileron has not provided generator disposal authorizations for the waste, but they have indicated they would provide those to the Commission at least 2 weeks prior to any shipment. They have requested a volume of 40 cubic feet and a radioactivity of 15 curies with 10 millicuries of C14, 3,000 microcuries of technetium-99, and 4,000 nanocuries of I-129. In this case, Aileron is asking for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable sealed sources, and that the compact facility operator is authorized to dispose of the proposed waste. We received a letter from TCEQ dated December 4, 2013, approving that waste for disposal. The waste is scheduled to come from the states of Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina, which are located in the Atlantic, Appalachian, Midwest, Central Midwest, Southeast Compact, and then, of course, Massachusetts, New York, and Rhode Island are unaffiliated. And I believe that none of those compacts require export authorization, so there's no additional paperwork we need in that respect. The volume and radioactivity that they're proposing will not significantly diminish the capacity of the facility. In this case, the applicant has indicated that the waste is from small quantity generators, and based upon the requested volume and radioactivity, the Commission believes the request should be totaled against the small quantity generator set aside. In addition, the Commission is not aware that the applicant has access to another disposal site for these materials, and the applicant has requested an agreement that with the duration it would be through August 31, 2014, the end of the second disposal year. And I believe I did indicate it's Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable sealed sources. And the technical committee recommends approval of this application.
Thank you for the report. Are there questions from the Commission about the report that Mr. Salzman presented? Dick.
I just know that we're beginning to accept a fair amount of Class A imports, or we're accepting Class A imports without the apparent, as far as I could tell, a distinction as to how much of a particular permit is.
In other words, how much is Class A, how much is Class B, and everything?
Yeah, what the kind of fractions are. And I don't know quite how you break that down, but I suppose volume might be as good a way as any.
I would offer that it's likely they've asked for A, B, and C simply because they haven't packaged the waste yet, and they probably don't know specifically how many sources will go into a drum, and then that would then determine the waste class. But I believe that Mr. McCormick has an opinion to offer.
I see Mr. McCormick coming forward. John, you want to address this?
Yeah, it'll help everybody out. Typically, your Class A sources, B sources, C sources, you collect at the same time. Utah cannot take sealed sources for disposal, so there is no outlet for Class A sealed sources unless they're burned or destroyed. So that is why you're seeing so many applications, including Class A sources, because WCS is the only option for those.
Okay, what about the scatter program 1 year?
The 1 year you have to be registered with the program, okay, and we have collected quite a few, and we're sending Utah under a program. But these people outside, they even may be registered, they may be Aileron or somebody might be coming and getting them outside the scatter program where they're paying commercial rates. And then therefore they have those Class A sources, some other B sources, and C. We are collecting, I think we buried 25,000 last year at Utah. We've probably got another 30,000 at Class A to bury this year so far. I think there was 3,000 B or C sources we've buried so far. So, but again, people are going out commercially to take care of their other sources.
You say we buried. Is that just bionomics?
I have the contract, and Russ is here, and we are trying to do our very best to take care of as many as we can.
Okay, is that everybody or just bionomics is my question?
Well,
are there more than 30,000 in other words?
They just keep coming out of the woodwork. You know, they're yeah, but it's a lot of states. It's 30-some states that the scatter program is expanded into. And it's a great program, and we're going around and trying to convince people to participate. Yeah. But then there's a limited amount of funding that is available under that program, too.
Yeah. Dick, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess. Up in the Northeast, you hear a lot about Veolia kind of buying up pretty much everything in sight, and anything having to do with environmental engineering, consulting services, the whole 9 yards. And do you? I take it this Aileron. I'm not familiar with Aileron. I take it Aileron was an existing company that was.
Yes, Aileron's been, I don't know how many years, probably 30 years, 25 years in Wampum, Pennsylvania. Did a lot of work for the utility industry, some commercial, and it's gone through a few hands over the years, and now Veolia owns them. Yeah. There's, I can't remember how many processors there are, legitimate 6-8 processors in the country, another dozen brokers in the country. There's a lot of small companies involved in it, and then there's a few processing facilities.
So you deal with Aileron?
No, they're a competitor.
Oh, you're a competitor. Oh,
right. Okay. But I got up here to help them out. So.
He was just trying to tell you where this was coming from.
Right.
Which is outside of SCAD.
Right, it's outside of SCAD.
It's a commercial.
Right.
Somebody
and it's
got the money to get rid of it.
In the program, there's some sources that we can't take under scatter, so these might fall outside. They might not have enough. They might have pre-existing contracts where they've already shipped them. People may not know about scatter. Scatter is the more it goes on, and Russ can talk to this. It just keeps going.
Russ, do you want to add anything? Come up.
If I can repeat what he said with the British.
Russ, you need to get up on this.
Just come up and let everybody know who you are, Russ, if you don't mind doing that.
Get your commercial in early.
Yes, please. Use the scatter program. Keeps me employed, nothing else. Russ Meyer, I'm with the Conference of Radiation Control Program Directors, and in that position, a lot of my time is spent managing the scatter program
Yes.
for the DOE. And yeah, what John said is basically the situation. There's a lot of sources. DOE is very picky about what they will accept under the scatter program. It has to be a sealed source, and they've got a definitive examples of what will qualify and what won't, and that type of thing. And a number of sources, anything that's uncontained, that's not that can't be considered a sealed source, will not be allowable under scatter. So there are a lot of sources, a lot of contaminated materials and stuff like that just doesn't have a weight unless it goes through John or another broker.
This started with a question from Mr. Sadek about why the Class A material is it all sealed source material that would be considered, or some Class A that I know there's sealed sources that have Class A.
Well, yes. The state of Utah actually kind of set up a situation for Class A. There is no such thing as a sealed source that is Class A waste. It's only defined once in a but they agreed to a set of circumstances where it would qualify based on the fact that the concentration in no single source would exceed the Class A limit, so therefore you could put all you wanted to in one drum, you still wouldn't exceed Class A limit. So because it's a concentration-based standard, not a total activity. So that's how that came about, that Utah has that, and that year began September 30th,
right,
not the 31st of last year, and it will end September 30th of this year. I've not heard anything from our friends at Energy Solutions about whether or not they're going to attempt to extend it. So at that point in time, then any Class A waste, unless they decide to extend it, that at that point in time, any external Class A sealed sources will go to WCS.
Thank you. And now we have a much better explanation about the Class A that might go to Energy Solutions associated with this particular type of waste, rather than that coming out of a power plant or something like that. But are your questions pretty much answered now, Dick, or are there more?
I guess so. I just, maybe the Rules Committee is the place to do this, but it strikes me that we've gone from being, like as precise as possible in this business in terms of the classifications and how much is coming in, this and that. And now we've moved, now that the imports are such an enormous part of this, and we're dealing with so many players now, and we're dealing with people who are in various stages of development of what their shipments are going to be. We're kind of waving through things with less detail and less breakdown. And I guess ultimately we're going to have to make a decision as to how much of that we need, and how much breakdown we need, how much detail, how much as a practical matter can be provided.
If I was going to put on my business hat and say, well, please don't accept Class A sources, okay, but that would kind of be unfair to the small generators around the country and all the brokers. When you package the Class A sources in with the B and C sources, you're creating a Class B or C drum. So it's not going to be listed as Class A. However, if you took the individual source based on the Utah criteria, okay, and you measured it, it would be a Class A source. Now, the thing you have to guard against too, I'm very against this, is you cannot take a small item and put it in a drum and average it over the volume of that drum and call it Class A. And that is a trick that some in the industry still use, okay? That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about individual sources, small sources that technically are Class A under Utah, but because they have one or two, they put them in with their B and C, they have a B and C drum, and we're just listing out the A, B, and C. And if you look at some of these applications and look at my import application, see how familiar they are, similar. The same states, the same verbiage. They're copying what I've gone through for 3 years, and now they're copying it. They should be up here too, telling you what they are doing with the material. and that would make you feel better, instead of me vouching for them. And I'm not vouching, I'm just telling you what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see that, you know, the question is how much track we really want to keep of the details of this comment, and whether there's a decision in there somewhere, or whether, you know, the decision is simply, okay, you know, tidal wave of exports or imports, and that's that.
Well, I'm glad you're asking these questions, Dick. You'll have an opportunity to ask a lot more in the second week of April when we have our meetings. And so,
Could I just address that concern as
Sure.
far as the Class A concerns, your Class A concerns are expressed by you? Seal sources, there are people who do just generate small seal sources that would quote-unquote qualify, if you packaged them up and shipped them anywhere, would qualify as Class A waste. And they need an outlet for their sources, for their seal sources. So the present system, like John explained, the Class A source normally was never a consideration for seal sources, because regardless of what the activity of the source is, it was always put in a drum with other higher activity sources that wound up resulting in the drum being classified as B or C waste. So they're there whether you want them to be there or not. And the system has worked great. And you know, I kept pointing out to people at the beginning of this thing that there was going to be a little bit of confusion on the part of most of the generators when we told them about Class A seal sources, because it had never been a concern for them before. They just gave them to the brokers with whatever other higher activity sources they had, and it was never a question. They always went to the site as B or C waste. So I don't think, and especially with the seal sources, the volumes are just never going to be there that you're going to see with reactor waste or any kind of decommissioning waste is concerned. They're always going to be small. The volumes will always be small. Now, there's a large number of sources. You're going to see an influx in the state for a while, or in the compact for a while, just because 36 states have been waiting to get rid of their radioactive waste for 4 or 5 years, and I anticipated the influx would actually start a little sooner, but I think what's happening is that the crescendo is building now, and at some point in time it will drop back off, and I'm hoping that I'll be out of a job, or pretty close to it, within the next 5 or 6 years, if I can last that long.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Any more questions or comments?
No, I think it's a good education.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it. I know Ms. Madru has joined us. Good to see you. Welcome. Ms. Zaleski, you work in this field. Do you have anything to add to the discussion you've been hearing? Okay. All right. Is there any, I guess that I'm ready for a motion on 7A, Aileron. John.
I make a motion that we approve the application from Veolia ES Aileron LLC. That's 1-0054-00, signed November 29, 2013, and the waste would be 40 cubic feet. Curies are 15. It's 10 millicuries of C14, 3,000 microcuries of technetium-99, and 4,000 nanocuries of I-129. The waste would be originating from Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Waste description is sealed sources. The waste classification is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable, with the caveat that Veolia must provide us generator authorizations prior to actually shipping any of the waste. And that agreement would expire August 31, 2014.
All right. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there additional discussion in addition to the discussion we had about his report among the commissioners? Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to comment? All right.
Pardon me, but I would also add that this waste would be accounted for under a small quantity generator set aside.
Very good. That'll be included in your motion, I assume that's all right.
Correct.
Second. All right. And I'll call for a vote then on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and the agreement will be granted. Next, 7B, Perkin-Elmer, 1-0055. Mr. Saltzman.
Pardon me one moment. The technical committee received and reviewed an application from Perkin-Elmer Incorporated, signed November 25, 2013, received by the Commission December 2, 2013, and that was number 1-0055-00. In this case, Perkin-Elmer is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of non-party low-level waste in accordance with the Act. The Perkin-Elmer is requesting a proposed volume of 276 cubic feet and a radioactivity of 9,131.2 curies. The compact facility operator has been authorized to dispose of the waste from Perkin-Elmer, which is Class B unstable NC trash, which stands for non-compactable trash. And that approval was granted in a letter from TCEQ dated December 4, 2013. The waste is coming from the state of Massachusetts, which is not part of a compact, so there's no export authorization required. The proposed volume and radioactivity will not significantly diminish the disposal capacity at the site, and the Commission is not aware that the applicant has access to another waste disposal facility. And finally, they've requested that the agreement duration be through August 31, 2014, which would be the end of the second disposal year. And the technical committee recommends approval of this application.
Thank you. Are there questions from the Commission about Mr. Salzman's report? All right. I'm ready for a motion, John.
I make a motion that we approve the application from Perkin-Elmer Incorporated 1-0055-00, signed November 25, 2013, for 276 cubic feet of waste, 9,131.2 curies. The waste will originate from the state of Massachusetts. The waste description is NC trash. The waste classification is Class B. The waste form is unstable, and the agreement would expire August 31, 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion been made and seconded. Is there additional discussion? Questions? Anybody in the audience wish to comment or make any observations to this? All right. No further questions, no comments. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Abstentions? All right. Motion passes. Perkin-Elmer application for agreement is approved. And the next one is RAM Services, Inc., and go ahead, John, when you're ready.
All right. The technical committee received an application from RAM Services Incorporated that was 1-0056-00, was signed November 26, 2013, received by the Commission December 2nd, 2013. In this case, RAM Services is a broker who was a licensed waste processor and collector, requesting authorization to dispose of non-party low-level waste in accordance with the Act. RAM Services has not provided generator disposal authorizations for the waste or export authorizations where they are required. They are requesting 7.5 cubic feet and a radioactivity total of 10.5 curies. The compact facility operator has been authorized to dispose of the waste from RAM Services, which is Class C, stable, sealed sources, and that authorization was granted in a letter from TCEQ dated December 4, 2013. The applicant has indicated the waste will be from the states of Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, California, Connecticut, Delaware, Washington, D.C., Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin, which are part of the Southeast, Central, Southwestern, Atlantic, Appalachian, Central Midwest compacts with District of Columbia, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, and Rhode Island being unaffiliated states. And if I am correct, only the Central Compact and the Southwestern Compact of those will require export authorizations. The proposed volume in curies will not significantly diminish the disposal volume or capacity at the facility. The applicant has indicated the waste is from small quantity generators, and based upon the requested volume and radioactivity, the Commission believes the request should be totaled against the small quantity generator set aside. In addition, the Commission is not aware that the applicant has access to another waste disposal facility for this waste. And in this case, the applicant has requested import authorization from February 1, 2014 through December 31, 2014. So this would carry over to the third disposal year, so we would need an accounting for any waste disposed on or before August 31, 2014. And the Technical Committee recommends approval.
Any questions of Mr. Saltzman about his report? Dick?
You're shipping from 31 states, and all you have is 7.5 cubic feet. And is this because it's extremely hot? It's Class C. What is that?
Why is it Class C?
Well, why is it? It strikes me as not very much volume if you're bringing it in from 31 states. Or are they just listing all their customers and being done with it?
Lee may be able to speak more definitively to that, but in terms of the volume and the curies, we have to remember the sealed sources physically are very small, so it would be actually quite easy to put hundreds of sealed sources into one 55-gallon drum. Now the activity is significant. 10.5 curies is a significant amount of radioactivity. Whether they are in fact just listing all their customers from all their states, I can't speak to. They did not provide generator disposal authorization forms, which they would be required to provide prior to shipping any of the waste. But Lee, perhaps you can speak to that.
I also don't know the specifics with RAM on their particular customers, et cetera. But and this will be an important issue, I think, at the April meeting that we talk about with the brokers is this issue is, I'm not even sure if RAM Services has these customers or generators yet. I think some of the practices that they do is they don't want to take a source until, or any waste until they have a home for it. So they want to ensure they've got authorization with a home for disposal before they secure the waste to begin with. And so in an abundance of caution, they will ask for a number of states, and I don't think it's a coincidence they don't have the Rocky Mountain states or the Northwest states here because it's difficult to export out of those compacts. So they include the other states, and then if they in fact do get this waste, they'll come back with the generator authorizations and the necessary export authorizations in order to dispose. And that's my understanding from talking to the various brokers that do this work. I hear why they ask for a number of states ahead of time.
Okay, so what they're doing is reserving space, and then they go out and they get the waste.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a fair way to put it. And there's a number of reasons why they reserve space. Again, they don't want to get stuck with a source that they don't have a home for. And I'm sure there's other things they can share with you in April about that, but that's generally my understanding from talking with them.
Dick, I would also add that I believe it's the practice of at least some of the generators, the people who actually own these sources, is that they don't want to sign a contract, if you will, with RAM Services or Bionomics or somebody like that until that entity can in fact say, yes, we have an authorization at the facility, so that if I own that source, I don't ship it to you and then find out later on you can't get an authorization. So now my source is at your facility. Am I going to have to pay to have it shipped back to my facility? So I think there's some, if you will, they're trying to protect themselves. I think both parties, both the broker and the generator, are in some cases sort of trying to protect themselves.
I can see how that makes business sense. I suppose if it makes business sense, it should make regulatory sense. But it just seemed like a very broad application.
Sorry, I was out of the room, Dick, but I've heard your concerns before on the same subject.
Can you kind of state your name?
Oh, John McCormick again.
Recognize you, John?
Yeah, that's so nice.
Mr. McCormick has approached us to make a comment.
John's right. I mean, we all have radioactive materials licenses, and the prudent thing to do is to know that you have approval to dispose of something before you collect it. In the past couple of years, there's been some facilities that have gone bankrupt or closed down, and the original generator is coming back and removing their material, and they have to find now a disposal outlet for that material. So the prudent thing to do is to make sure going forward you are able to dispose of what you pick up. So there is some speculation that, okay, I'm picking up in all these different states, and this is how much volume I'm going to get. Now, some people will over-guesstimate how much they want or need, and some of us will fall short, of what we need, and we'll come back and we'll need an amendment. For the most part, unless you have a pay-as-you-go or pay-to-reserve, there's going to be some over-speculation. But we still need those approvals ahead of time in order to keep the material moving. Because if say, I have XYZ company and I come and I get my approval now, it'll be 90 days, say, before I go and pick it up, and it'll be 90 days more before it comes to the burial site. So in the meantime, it just sits there.
Okay, I suppose as we go forward, I at least would be interested in kind of a sense of, as a business matter, how that dynamic should be handled by this commission. I can certainly understand business reasons for wanting to do that, because you don't want to get stuck, as you say, and certainly the generator doesn't want to get stuck with the shipper who can't deliver on. But on the other hand, it seems to me, was it TVA that we had a lot of space kind of reserved, and then they didn't come through, and all of a sudden there was there's another end to that problem.
Right, and that was the fear initially, even for like us and the small generators. That's why I lobbied for a small generator set aside, because originally one or two of the utilities was going to take all the volume, and the small generators were going to be left without anything.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Yes, they fell well short of where they were going to be. Now the small generators are pretty much protected, and that's very important. But it could be a thing where if you reserve, and I don't know, Linda, you can help me, if I reserved like 180 curies or whatever, I came within 10%, or I was more than that, I can't remember. But if you don't perform, the next time you come and you ask for an import application, you need to be sitting up here and explain why you didn't perform, and then it might be a basis where we're not going to give you everything, we're just going to give you what you really need. And then if they perform, then let them go back to speculating a little bit more.
It's an interesting problem for all of us. John, go ahead.
Dick, I would add that for the 3 applications, new applications before us today, or 3 of them are from our small quantity generator set-asides. It's a total of 147.5 cubic feet. So we're talking about a pretty small percentage of the pardon me, I should have this memorized, but I don't, of the limit for the second disposal year. The volume limit, I believe, is 50,000 cubic feet. So today's applications are 147.5 cubic feet out of 50,000. So the small quantity generators may in fact be sort of trying to reserve some capacity, but it's a very small amount, as opposed to the situation you cited earlier where TVA was wanting to basically have a very large set-aside. And I think this commission had concerns, and they were legitimate about the amount of volume that they wanted to sort of have protected. So.
And I'll add on a couple comments. One is that we have thought about how to deal with this reserving capacity issue, and certainly we don't want somebody to come in and reserve 90% of the capacity for a particular operational year, at least without maybe paying for it. And the question is, how do we assure that it gets used? And that's all going to be part of our discussion, I'm sure, when we talk about the rules and what we can do and the way to develop the rules and handle these kinds of questions that keep coming up. For my own part, I'll notice Puerto Rico is not yet a state; it's a commonwealth. But
it's actually listed on our the document that's part of our manual today, number 9, the map of compacts. Puerto Rico is listed down there at the bottom, and they are not part of a compact.
Well, I know they're not part of a compact. I don't think we can elevate them to a statehood yet on our own. But D.C. is exactly the same. And so I'm just making those observations. Puerto Rico, we just, I don't want to be faced with questions about whether we're looking at continental United States, much less when we look at Guam or anything like that. And so I'm just observing that it's part of the United States. It is a commonwealth. And so, anyway, with that, I guess I'm ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the application from RAM Services Incorporated 1-0056-00, signed November 26, 2013, for 7.5 cubic feet of waste, 10.5 curies total radioactivity. I'll see if I can get this right. From the states of Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Arizona, California, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, San Diego, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. The waste description is sealed sources. The waste classification is Class C. The waste is stable, and the agreement would be I guess, from February 1, 2014 through December 31, 2014, though I don't think the beginning date is critical, it's really the ending date, with the caveat that RAM Services has to provide us in advance of any shipments the generator disposal authorizations and any export authorizations that would be required.
And I would also mention that they have to account for the years. And
yes, that's correct.
And I would also mention that as from place of origination, instead of San Diego, I would say South Dakota.
Did I say San Diego?
I believe you did.
I apologize. That would be South Dakota. And that's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Sorry, I missed that.
You hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion been made and seconded. Is there additional discussion on the motion? Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience who cares to comment further? All right. I'll call for a vote then. All in favor of the application of RAM Services, Inc., please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Of any opposition? Abstentions? Motion passes. Application is approved. Next one is NSSI 1-0057. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Salzman.
The technical committee received an application from NSSI Recovery Services Incorporated. That's 1-0057-00. That was signed September 9, 2013, received by the Commission December 2nd, 2013. In this case, NSSI is a broker who is a licensed waste processor and collector, requesting authorization to dispose of non-party low-level waste in accordance with the Act. NSSI has not provided generator disposal authorizations for the waste or export authorizations where they are required. In this case, they are requesting a volume of 100 cubic feet, a total radioactivity content of 100 curies, with 100 millicuries of carbon-14, 100 microcuries of technetium-99, and 100,000 nanocuries of I-129. The compact facility operator has been authorized to dispose of the waste from NSSI as Class A, Class B, and Class C stable and unstable sealed sources. That authorization was granted in the letter from TCEQ dated December 10, 2013. The waste would be originating from the states of California, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, New York, Arizona, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, New Hampshire, and Delaware, which are part of the Southwestern, Central Midwest, Midwest, Central, Southeast Appalachian, and Appalachian compacts, with the states of New York, North Carolina, Michigan, Nebraska, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island being unaffiliated. Those only, if I'm correct, the Southwestern Compact and the Central Compact require export authorizations. The proposed volume and radioactivity would not significantly diminish the disposal volume or curie capacity at the site. In this case, the applicant has indicated the waste is from small quantity generators, and based on the volume and radioactivity, the Commission believes the request should be totaled against the small quantity generator set aside. The Commission is not aware that the applicant has access to another disposal facility for the proposed waste, and the applicant has requested that the duration of the agreement be through December 20, 2014, and the Technical Committee recommends approval of the application.
All right. Mr. Gallagher, welcome. But before I get to you, let me see if there are questions of the Commissioners on Mr. Salzman's report. Any questions from the Commissioners or comment? Linda?
What kind of processing or treatment were you planning on doing? Just popping them out of their containers and stuff and putting them into combined? Because you mentioned
since we are a licensed possessor and treater.
Mr. Gallagher.
I'm sorry?
Let me just introduce you to everybody.
I'm sorry. I'm Bob Gallagher, President of Nuclear Sources and Services in Houston. We are a permitted facility by the Department of State Health Services for handling radioactive materials. We're also permitted by the TCEQ as a processor and treater of radioactive and mixed waste, as well as a full spectrum of chemical waste.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, but I needed to make
Not a
sure
problem.
I knew who you
My
were.
apologies. We are in a very unusual situation in that with the licenses that we possess, we are able to bring in devices, take them out of their packaging, consolidate them with other generators, devices, or sources, and encapsulate them for disposal at the waste control site. This, of course, this ability to consolidate takes full advantage of the volume capacity that's at WCS. So it primarily is nothing more than removing them from shielding as they are received and repackaging to meet the site criteria.
sometimes we think of treatment, and we think of other things.
On occasion, leaking sources are received. We are also a permitted manufacturer of sealed sources. So in that particular case, we have the ability, in the case of sealed source or unsealed sources, which may not have another option, to turn them back into a sealed source to make them usable or disposable at the site. So that perhaps could fall into the treatment category.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Are there other questions from the Commission of Mr. Gallagher, or anything else you care to put before us, Mr. Gallagher?
No, only that we've been at this since 1971, so it's we have almost restricted ourselves to Texas-only waste in the past. However, we are getting numerous inquiries from non-compact locations which have need to either close or dispose of materials. So we are beginning to get more and more involved in the non-compact waste area as well.
Very good.
Bob, if I could ask you one question, and that is, obviously the waste that you're proposing here is coming from out of the state of Texas, so this would be considered non-compact waste, and so you would be, in your agreement with WCS, you would be paying out of compact rates for the disposal of this material, correct?
That's my understanding. At the present time, we are shipping to WCS from our major logging customers. Those are under the Texas rates. These would be out of compact rates.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I comment, I appreciate you coming. A lot of times the guys are on these papers don't come, and it's glad to see you here. Because I think it's a thing, if you're charging somebody to represent who you're charging, I think that's some of the charge that you're telling the customer you'll represent them. Some of these guys don't.
And this is one of the reasons.
And you're only 2 hours from Austin, too.
Well, true, but it's not a small expense. But one of the reasons we have not dealt with non-compact waste in the past is that on almost every situation means a requirement to come to Austin to defend bringing in that export material. In this particular case, since we do have the ability to do consolidation, I can deal with it from my own standpoint as rather than being here for a specific generator out of compact.
Very good. Mr. Gallagher, thank you. I'll just pass along that we are in the midst of looking at our rules dealing with imports, and we sure would appreciate the help from everybody in the business to help us make a rational decision about what.
I get inquiries from your staff periodically.
Very good. All right. I guess I'm ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the application from NSSI Recovery Services Incorporated, 1-0057-00, dated September 9, 2013, for 100 cubic feet of waste, 100 curies total radioactivity, 100 millicuries of C14, 100 microcuries of technetium-99, and 100,000 nanocuries of I-129. The waste would be originating from the states of California, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, New York, Arizona, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, New Hampshire, and Delaware. The waste description is sealed sources. The waste classification is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is stable and unstable. And that agreement would be through December 2014 with the caveat that NSSI would provide us waste generator authorizations and waste export authorizations as required, and that they would provide us an accounting of any materials that are actually disposed on August 31, 2014 or earlier, and then indicate how much is disposed of in the third disposal year.
John, let me ask you a question. The application, Ms. Watkins has shown me is November. The expiration duration is to be November 20th, 2014. Is that correct?
I believe that was the request by NSSI. That's correct.
Is that correct, Mr. Gallagher?
That was the date of our application to the Compact Commission.
And you were looking for a year?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
So if I can ask for certainty when we put this agreement together, the date of expiration will be November 20th, 2014, not December. November 20th, 2014, correct? Perfect.
I don't have an objection to that.
Well, that's what you requested. That's what we're trying to get clarification on. All right. All right. That's the motion. Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Dick?
Yeah, is this another situation where you're reserving space and now you're going to go out to your generators and say, I've got space, you've got 100 cubic feet, 100 curies?
We will be, okay, I have numerous quotes currently pending for out-of-state facilities. I have not yet taken that waste because I did not have approval to do so. So I am reserving it. There is no question that I will fill it.
Okay, and are you pretty confident that 100 cubic feet and 100 curies is a realistic amount, plus or minus?
The curies may be high. I think the volume is probably right on. I currently have, from in-compact customers, I currently have 20 55-gallon drums ready to be shipped with about 15 to 20 curies each. So.
Thank you.
Sure. There's been a motion and a second. Is there additional discussion from any of the members of the commission? Anybody in the audience? Mr. Gallagher, thank you. Care to comment or make any observations to us? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion is approved, and the importation agreement is approved. With the consent, we've been going an hour and a half, but with the consent of the Commission, I'd like to go ahead and go through items 8A and B. And I would notice, and John, this is another one, I guess, in your bailiwick. This has to do with exports. These are both by Bionomics. They're both for the same entity. The waste stream is a little bit different. Should we consider them separately or together? I just assume.
I would probably present them individually.
Okay. Item 8A then, Bionomics, Aileron, Fort Worth, export petition. These are liquids and vials. John. Oh, John.
You want me to talk about mine or that, John?
I'd be happy to have Mr. McCormick discuss these.
Go ahead, Mr. McCormick.
Okay.
You're here.
All right.
We'll let you defend your own application.
John McCormick again. This is a small generator who has some research waste that they've thrown into one container or two containers on some of this. And there's materials in there that would be costly. It would be a health hazard to go through and try to segregate these out and make this right for the burial site. You know, and this is just a little bit of material. And it's a situation where I don't want my people doing it. They're not comfortable doing it. And the proper thing is to destroy this by incineration. And if you notice, most of my export applications, if they come in, it's for non-compatible material for the burial site that are going to be incinerated or destroyed that way. So there's going to be no touching, sorting, segregating, no increase in hazards to anyone. And that's the main impetus behind my export applications. And it's for small volumes. There's no large volumes.
Right. We understand that it's sent to Oak Ridge for incineration,
Right.
and whatever
Then
the
to Utah,
residue
it's
is
a cup full of ash
yeah.
that's going to get created.
Right. Mr. Salzman.
For the record, I would note that the material is actually coming from a company named Alcon from Fort Worth, Texas. The agenda actually says Aileron, so it's actually Alcon.
Yeah, I have the application. I can see that. So.
The actual amount that's being requested is 20 pounds of liquid vials, and I would concur with Mr. McCormick that it really does not make sense from a LARA standpoint to try to sort through those vials and empty them out individually. All you would be doing is you'd still have the liquid that you'd have to get rid of, and that can't go to the site without a significant amount of processing. It really does not make sense to do that. And the request is for a one-time disposal of this material out of compact.
All right.
And I would recommend approval.
Let me ask a question to our party legal counsel, seeing as how the name is a little bit mistyped.
I should probably, I should probably speak to that.
All right.
We did have Aileron on there, and what we did, and that was the original version that went out to Commissioner Salzman. What we did after that was we corrected it and renoticed it the next day with the Secretary of State, and still within the 9 or 10 days, whatever it is. So, and the corrected versions are in your notebook, and I did not call Commissioner Salzman and say, oh, we corrected all that, so that's my bad, that I didn't let him know that.
Well, it shows you that I actually looked at the first thing you sent out rather than when it was posted, so it's my problem too. All right. The motion has been made, and have you made a motion?
Actually, I probably have. I make a motion that we approve the export petition from Alcon through Bionomics for 20 pounds of liquid vials. It's a one-time request. Material would go to Energy Solutions in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
All right. Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded to approve the export petition for Alcon through Bionomics. Is there any additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman, out of an abundance of caution, my law firm has represented Alcon in the past, so I will need to abstain.
Very good. That lets me know I need to vote. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anybody in the audience care to comment? Mr. McCormick, we thank you for being here.
Okay, I got one more.
I know. All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye also on this one. Note one abstention, Mr. Hurley.
Thank you.
And no opposition, so the motion passes. All right, the next one and the last one, 8B, is another Bionomics petition for Alcon Fort Worth for dry active waste with sharps. Mr. McCormick.
It's the same thing, only this one is worse. It's sharps. And again, I'm not going to sort through it myself or have anybody sort through it to make sure everything in there is within the waste acceptance criteria at the burial site. So, you know, the best thing for health and safety is you take the bag, you put it in a plastic container, you incinerate the whole thing. And nobody gets exposed, nobody gets poked with a sharp, nothing happens.
Right, gotcha. Mr. Salzman.
The technical committee has reviewed the export petition from Alcon out of Fort Worth, Texas, through Bionomics. The request is for a one-time disposal out of compact for approximately 50 pounds of dry active waste containing sharps. I would recommend the committee recommends approval. As Mr. McCormick has indicated, it would create significant health and safety hazards to actually try to sort through and separate these materials out. The best disposal option is really to take the material and incinerate it. And based on some questions that Dick has had, this would probably be Class A waste, and so we're actually now exporting some Class A waste. So, tip for tat.
That's what we're supposed to do.
There you go.
All right. Are there any questions or is there any discussion among the commission members on the report? Mr. Salzman, give us the application Mr. John has submitted to us for Bionomics. All right, I'm ready for my motion, John.
I make a motion that we approve the export petition from Alcon through Bionomics for a one-time period to export approximately 50 pounds of dry active waste containing sharps.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and is there any further discussion among the commission members? I'll note, Mr. Hurley, that your previous observation extends to this application too, so you'll be abstaining, my understanding. Any further discussion, any comment from the members attending or people attending? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Show the chair voting aye. Show one abstention, and the motion passes. And
Thank you very much.
Mr. McCormick. And at that point, that concludes item 8 on our agenda. And before we go to the reports, I'd like to take a break. We've been going about an hour and a half, and I think everybody's ready for one. We'll try to be back in 10 or 15 minutes and get through the reports and the other items on the agenda, and maybe we can actually meet the airplane schedule for everybody. Thank you. We're in recess temporarily. Thank you. We get involved in this stuff. I'm very glad you're a big fan of it. I really am. Thank
I enjoy this.
Brad and I were talking earlier. You didn't know I knew Stephanie Kaiser.
I saw the other night.
Well, Stephanie cornered him yesterday for about 30 minutes and started telling him about his history, but he didn't know that you and I were doing that. Rockland, and so I was saying we were talking about all those
You could even find that down there. Airport shut them down. Historic can, and it's originally made airport. But anyway. I don't think we'll have really. There's no country. Well, of course that happened in about, I came down here in the 80s and it was already off. So now it's even south. I used to cut across to go down to the we used to go down there and cut across and cut through the Cleveland. Takes a week to get through this city. Everybody in there. As they say, you can take a check from anybody there. Mailbox money's changed a lot of people's lives down there. Oh, did you come? Not mine. Did I ask you if you read it? Oh, yeah. Georgia and I grew up in Bump into it, if you tell him you ran across the counter, do you have we started. I'm the one that called this up. Georgie's been up there. Well, oh, is that right? Before we even heard of nuclear power. Well, it was fun. My wife. Oh, okay. And I said to him today. Yeah. And the old DOP interest across the street, so we had 10,000. Oh, really? The DOP. One of my first good promotions and good travel. It was a good one. Anyway, we'll visit you. Talk about old Fort Worth. Old Fort Worth.
Old Fort Worth. Yeah, there's only electricity. Can I get out? I think you could. We're fixing to build 3 more. 2 of them are definitely. Oil. I've already done that. I mean, it still says whatever it's out there. Real dollars,
All right, folks, I realize that most of you are probably taking care of more business talking among yourselves than we're doing up here, but please, what's the matter, Pam? Oh, you are? Well, I'm not saying anything worth worrying about, so don't worry about it, okay? So we'll get going again as soon as we get the full complement of those commissioners present here. Okay, we are through item 8. The next one is item 9, and Mr. McGuire, you're up. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm batting 1,000 as being the first item after the break.
Well, we try to save the best to re-energize us right after we hit the break.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I should have known that. For the record, I'm Charles McGuire, Director of Radioactive Materials Division at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The two agenda items that you have for us to report on today, one has to do with amendment applications, and we have there's not been a lot of change since the last report we made, but we do have now 3 major amendments that have been notice given to the public that they are administratively complete. And just to refresh you on that, one of those amendments is a revision to the performance assessment, which would result, if issued, in some changes to the limits on certain radionuclide. The second of which is a major amendment that changes the amount of financial assurance required that's required at the site. And the third amendment is to expand the footprint. Whenever we talk about volumes, there's sometimes confusion as to whether we're talking about curies or talking about cubic meters. This would change the licensed cubic feet, to expand the licensed cubic feet at the site. Again, these are at this time only administratively complete. The public's been not notified of that. The next step in our process with an amendment is should we arrive at the point that we would be able to move forward with those amendments, the next step for us would be to declare it technically complete. At that point, it is once again placed in public notice, and there's a comment period, and so those amendments, I'm not sure right now exactly how they will proceed to notice when, as, and if they're declared technically complete, because the licensing process is sequential, and so we're working on that, and that's the other thing that you put on the agenda has to do with the rulemaking, and it's I think maybe that unless something unexpected happens, I think that maybe can now disappear from our reporting here. I think the short part of the report would be to say that's been completed. We published it in the Texas Register, and it became effective as 30 TAC 336.1310 on November the 28th, 2013. So that part of our rulemaking process is complete, and I don't have. There's always the item of other things to bring before you. I don't have other things, but I'm available to answer questions.
Okay, let me first. I think you brought some new people with you today.
Yes, I did. We've changes in the wind. In the corner, That young lady, her name is Dana Fine. She's part of my administrative team. She, in recent months, has worked a lot with Audrey and Lee, and so I thought it might be helpful, just in the sake for the sake of communications, to let Dana see and know the people that we work with at the Compact Commission. Bobby Janica is with me. Y'all all know Bobby, I'm sure. Katie Arnold is with me. Katie is moved to our intergovernment relations division at the agency, and I tell folks she's my handler, and I think everybody knows I need one, and so she has the luxury of being responsible for getting me to the right place with the right information at hopefully close to the right time. And then Amy Richardson is also with me. She is is the division's attorney in the Environmental Law Division relative to the license.
Yeah, and we noticed Tanya dropped by just to see you, I think.
Well, she, she loves you guys and gals so much that she just can't stay away. I feel really sorry for somebody that just can't stay away from radioactive materials. But we love her, we miss her, and she was here close for other meetings, and so she just wanted to pop in and say hi, and of course we appreciate so much her continued interest in what we do.
All right. Let me ask you a quick question about the financial assurance. Was it, you say that amendment's been declared administratively complete, is that
That's correct.
Is that with regard to the form or the amount or both of those things?
The administrative complete in our process on radioactive materials license really is nothing more than to say we have enough information to move forward to process that application to see if we would want to bring it to a place where it's technically complete. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to often ask for additional information to clarify some of the things, but there's a lot of administrative types of things that have to accompany an application. Things as simple as maybe a Secretary of State ID number, proper addresses, names of important officers, people with responsibilities in the company, basic information, and so we take a really hard look at it to see if we have enough there to really get engaged with the application to determine technical completeness. And so all three of those are at that point, but what it does not do is really begin to look at so much technically what's been provided in the application. That's the process that we have right now.
My question was just the nature of the application, that the request that was submitted, regardless of what it was it to address both either the form or the amount or both?
It does. The application should have everything in it to be able to amend the license, and so it form and substance is very different a part of the application.
All right, I'm just curious about such things,
yes,
as you know from history. Thank you. Are there questions from the commission? Mr. Sadek.
Keep popping up on me.
Oh.
Do they want put up more insurance or less insurance?
The way our rules work, and that's not insurance, it's assurance, it's financial assurance. The way our rules work, if there's an increase in financial assurance, that is handled as a minor amendment. Decreases in financial assurance have to be handled as major amendments, and so this is a request to decrease the amount of financial assurance for the site, and so that's what has to be a major amendment.
And this is WCS has made this application to increase the assurance.
To decrease it, yes, sir.
To decrease it. I'm sorry. All right, that's a surprise. So, from what to what?
I don't get really involved with amendment applications until we get it to the place that we're heavy into the technical review. I really haven't had a chance to sit down with the engineer reviewing it. I can tell you it's a substantial reduction in the financial assurance for the site based on the current financial assurance being for several different things that are not at the site. The original amount of financial assurance covered several different things, and so looking at closure, post-closure, unexpected closure, kinds of events, WCS has requested that financial assurance be reduced based on some of the things that they have financial assurance for don't exist.
Thank you. And would the assurance be once again well, my understanding, right, it just goes back, and I forget exactly what the deal is, but as I understand it, there are about 5 or 4 different categories of assurance that they are allowed to put up. Four of which are, all but one of which is typical, typical in the sense of putting up, I don't know, letter of credit, for instance, that sort of thing. And the 5th one is, or something else that you might approve. And I want to know whether the assurance going forward is in that 5th category again, because I believe it was.
We refer to those, I think what you're talking about, we refer to those as mechanisms, and there's not a proposed change in the mechanisms involved in my understanding of what they've asked for. And so it's still a combination of cash, bonds, letters of credit, and publicly traded equity.
Let me interject something, and Charles, you might help me out in this instance. I understand that there is a different section of TCQ that actually looks at the form of the assurance. Is that not correct? That's correct. The way the responsibility would divide out is as the people that handle financial assurance mechanisms for the agency are in our administrative office, and we have our finance folks that do that. Now they're more focused on the actual implementation of the financial assurance and the mechanisms that are used and making sure all of those conform with the rules and the license. But the review of the financial assurance amount is something that takes place in our division. It's a significant engineering review project to look at the things that would be a part of any sort of closure, post-closure, unexpected event. And the money's there for us to go out and hire a third party to fix it, if you will, should for some reason WCS not be able or willing to do that. I'm going to jump in. So that my understanding is what you're doing is looking at the things that you might anticipate under the license as having to perform as engineering or remediation or closure tasks, and then estimating the costs of those to the best of your ability, but the form that assurance will be evaluated by a different section. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that help?
Well, perhaps. It's always seemed to me that assurance and these kinds of things is a relatively simple concept. It could get complicated. You're talking about lots of engineering and all that sort of thing. But in the final analysis, the question is, what did you put up as security? And my recollection is that you had the various choices, and what they did was, for the majority of the security, I believe, in the first instance, they put up a bunch of related company stock or something like that. They then put up other elements, some cash, some letter of credit, but the basics for us, I believe, you please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have a clear memory on this, but it seems to me that we should have a sense of what security is put up for the proper running of this thing. And after all, you know, we're talking about radioactive materials, which a lot of people see as dangerous stuff, and stuff where things can go wrong. And I've never quite understood what you have approved and why you have approved it for this security. It would seem to me that's an important matter.
Well, and I think we can definitely provide. I don't have those numbers on the tip of my tongue, but we can definitely provide you the breakdown amongst the different mechanisms for the current financial assurance. The amendment to the license will provide the new numbers if the license is modified in terms of the amount. There will be new numbers in terms of what sort of mechanism is behind each amount, and the cash, near cash items. There's significant dollars there as well, and so far I haven't heard you say bond in terms of your list, but there's bond available, letter of credit available. There is publicly traded equities available on a very restricted basis through a trust that's managed for our benefit. Should we need those funds. And so, we can give you the precise breakdown as the amendment might slide forward into technical completeness. That breakdown will be a part of that as well. If anything new is proposed, now WCS is not proposing changing the mechanisms themselves. But obviously, if the amount is reduced, the amount in those mechanisms could change.
And Dick, one way we might do this is just schedule a meeting with the financial people, the insurance people at TCQ sometime, and we can go down there and talk to them and get these questions answered for you. Make all the specifics, and that's the easy way to do it.
I've got to tell you, I don't understand. I don't understand the magic to this. I don't understand why this isn't something that somebody just says, boom, this is the amount of financial security they put up. These are the approximate ratios of the various components of it, or as you said, mechanisms, and be done with it. I mean,
that may be actually what has happened, but we just don't know that information, is what I'm saying.
But I'd like to be sure I'm being clear in the way we determine the amount. The amount is looking at the money we might need as a state agency to fix things if we had to go out and hire a third party to do so. That, the license requires responsibility of WCS, but we on radioactive materials licenses, we require financial assurance for the event that we have to do it. We have to hire a third party, and so we look at what we might have to do. And so there are buildings out there. Those buildings can become contaminated, and so what is it going to cost to decontaminate that building or destroy that building and dispose of the building materials themselves, and so there is a significant list of things that sit on that site that we would have to deal with. And so what the engineer is doing is he is looking at each of those things as a line item, looking at what we can find out about current costs to dispose of or decontaminate those costs are rolled into the total financial assurance that we would want to have for the site. And so that's the most significant aspect of the review is to be sure every item that we might have to deal with is on the list, and then to be sure that the cost being estimated is an appropriate cost. Then we also adjust those financial assurance amounts on an annual basis for inflation, and all of our folks with radioactive material licenses are in a annual update to their financial assurance package to compensate for inflation, and we tell them how much that needs to be, and so they go in and they go back through their number and adjust it for inflation. And that usually causes numbers to go up. The major amendment aspect of it is when we look at what would cause the gross number to go down.
Okay. Well, and I'll just comment that having been through this on the other side for a regulated entity for a few people, there are lots of discussions, and it's a complex problem because the surety doesn't all have to be available all at once. In other words, there is a staged process on what you might happen at various times, and so it's not uncommon to have forms of security that are staged to take into account the fact that things happen in a sequence on stabilization.
I don't doubt that it's complicated.
Yeah, okay.
I don't doubt that there's complexity. I do know that there's already been at least one or two changes in the or I believe there's been one or two changes in what's been put up, because one of those companies was sold that had almost all the security was from that company, and the company was sold, and I never, learned what was put up in its place. But I mean, these things aren't any mystery. They've been around. They've been talked about here, and people have come in and talked about them. And I just wondered, what the current status was. But I understand it's a very, very, very complex question.
Well, and I'm just trying to find out how much you want to talk about it here as opposed to going out to TCQ to ask them. Okay, so when we may do that, Charles, at some point, so you can warn your people.
Well, and we made an extensive report to the legislature in response to the legislation regarding financial assurance. I think we provided that to the commission, and so we can update that because there has been a change in the trust. Relative to the company, I can provide that information to Lee for her circulation. I think what you might be more interested in is at the point we might come to a place where we are willing to pursue a change in the license and go to technically complete. We can work something out with Lee so that she has available for y'all what the numbers would look like as proposed in the amendment going forward to public notice.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
All right. What's item 9? Item 10, Rod. You lucky guy. You get to answer more questions. While Rod's coming up, I'm confident that everybody on the commission is aware that Mr. Simmons passed away recently. And I told Rod privately that we didn't deal with Mr. Simmons directly, but please convey our wishes and hopes and concerns to his family for us. Thank you.
We do appreciate that.
And you're going to make a report to us today, I understand, or talk to us about something.
I am, and I'm batting 1,000. It seems like every time I get up here, I follow Charles. So the way that works out. We had operational items on there, and noted some of the questions. I'm happy to answer any of those if you'd like. And then also a slideshow on Class A that's up on the screens. Hopefully both the commission and the audience can see these. But some of the discussion over the last couple of meetings involved the importation of Class A. Is that something that WCS should be doing? Do we have enough capacity for that? What does that entail, and things like that? And within Class A, there's several different waste streams and types of waste. And I thought it might be beneficial just to show pictures for those that aren't as familiar as others. And I'm sure there's people in the audience who have more information as well, if a more detailed discussion. But I thought we'd go through this, so we'll start with slide 1. You may recall we did a capacity report, and we filed some information with the commission. Basically, we're requesting about 50,000 feet of Class A, and then about 25,000 feet of Class BC waste. That's being exported. We really want kind of the same amount coming in, and so our facility is a very fixed cost facility. It depends on volumes to make our revenue estimates, and we've got lots of capacity. We did file a major amendment to expand the site from the 2.3 million we currently have licensed to over 9 million. It's a threefold increase. Decommissioning of Vermont Yankee, that has come up as a discussion item. Is there enough capacity for it? When Vermont Yankee does decommission, it'll take approximately 200,000 cubic feet out of our operational estimates for Vermont Yankee. We assumed it would continue to operate through 2032, and so that capacity will be there. We also have the ability through license amendments that are already in place to take non-containerized waste. So this would be your decommissioning soils and debris and things like that. We would place those in a landfill outside of a concrete canister. We would then put a concrete box around them. And so that's much more efficient as far as utilization of the physical space. And so again, additional capacity for what we've got out there. All of the Vermont Yankee decommissioning waste, as well as Comanche Peak and South Texas project, are included in our estimates and our capacity, and just want the commission to have some comfort that we do have enough adequate capacity. Various types of waste. Class A includes dry active waste, we also call it DAW, bags, rags, protective clothing, just kind of trash, soil and debris, typically really low activity rates, large volumes but low activity. Resins and filters typically have high dose rates, and then large components. These may be reactor vessels, steam generators, things, and they typically have several inches of steel, and they qualify as their own container, and we'll see some pictures of that. Class BC would include resins and filters as well as radiated hardware. So you can see, and go back one slide, for Class A and BC, we've got resins and filters in both categories. And so there is crossover just depending on the activities and what's going on with that waste stream. Dry active waste, this is just a picture of one particular waste stream, hoses and bags and a bunch of assorted things just thrown in there. And this we typically have not received for importation. This is stuff that is typically being exported by the compact generators to Clive, Utah. We are working on being more efficient. A lot of this would go into a compactor and thus make it more volume efficient for us. But currently putting this kind of really low activity waste into a concrete canister and surround it with concrete grout just isn't the best use of our resource, and we're not cost competitive at this point. Soil and debris, much like you'd see on a construction project somewhere, these are going to be your soils you're digging up, parts of roads, parts of buildings, concrete, rebar, chunks, things that you're going to package in intermodals and other containers, bring them to the site. These, again, concrete rubble with rebar in it isn't necessarily needs to be placed in a concrete canister and grouted and things. We've got the ability to take this, but right now we haven't been cost effective for our compact site to do that. Large components. These range in size, and you see several different types of large components on rail cars and in placement areas. Some of these may be 16 feet long and 16 feet in diameter, and some are larger than that, some are smaller than that. But these are pieces that you're going to take out of a reactor. They change them out periodically. They typically have enough stability in and of themselves to meet any requirements that's required for our landfill. They're typically very heavy, require specialized transport and lifting and things into the landfill cell. We are taking this, and we have gotten importation for 4 large components from Point Beach. That was approved by the commission in a previous meeting, and that's expected at our site on or before June. So, this is something we're competitive with, and we expect to take more of. Sealed sources, a lot of discussion this morning about sources. These are a variety of pictures. These are typically pretty small. Obviously, you're putting a lot of these in a 55-gallon drum and grouting those with concrete. And then resins. There's a variety of different resins, and kind of on the left-hand side, you can see some of those different. Some of them are powder, some are more bead-like, and then filters on the right, kind of like a swimming pool filter, for lack of a better term. I did find out today that Vermont doesn't have swimming pools, so but if you had a swimming pool, this would be kind of a filter you might use. Rated hardware, a lot of just metal. We've talked about control rod blades and other things. This is a picture inside a fuel pool of a radiated hardware, and it's higher activity dose rate, but it's just basically metal that comes out. And so those are your kind of different types of waste streams. I thought it'd also be interesting to show shipping containers. So we talked about 55-gallon drums. Obviously, that's the yellow barrel there, kind of in the middle of the screen that you might put sources in, rock it up. We get a lot of that from small generators. Super sacks would be on your upper left corner. That you put soil and debris and things like that. It's really good for rail or truck cargoes. B25 boxes would be the blue boxes just under that. A lot of waste would go in there. Those are strong, tight containers, low activity type waste. In the center, the tagged shipping cask, that's for type A shipments, and you put a variety of waste in there. And then our new Robitel cask that's coming online is the farthest one on the right, and that's a shipping cask for type B shipments and class BC type waste. Higher dose rate type activity comes in those. So we can be cost competitive and effective in the marketplace for resins and filters, large components. The Class A waste supplements our BC volumes. We just haven't gotten there with BC volumes with what we need at the facility. We have the capacity, and in order to maintain our rates low for the in-compact generators for the waste we are taking from them, we do need to import the Class A waste. So hopefully this was helpful. And I'm available for questions.
Dick, what are your questions?
Quite an assumption. I don't know.
I hate that. I'm not going to ask you about security.
I'm sure he's grateful. No questions?
Nothing occurs to me.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about the Class A disposal in compact as well as shipping out of compact as we move forward through our rulemaking, and we've heard a lot today, and this clarifies things, I hope, for all of us. And so,
yeah, I will note I did submit informal comments for draft rules for whatever that may be worth. So.
All right, thank you. All right. John,
just one question, Rod, and sort of with your crystal ball, do you anticipate in the future the 3 in-compact utilities eventually beginning to ship their typical Class A DAW waste to you all?
I do. That's a goal of ours, is to be able to satisfy all their needs in compact. I know I need to do that cost effectively, that I can't make them pay more or much more than they're paying currently, but it would be nice to have a total solution for their in-compact needs. So we're continuing to work on that. We've gotten a couple of, I'll say, smaller projects on the federal side that we've been able to play with compaction and things like that, and we're still kind of honing our skills there, but that's something we're actively working on.
So you all are actively working in the area to either have or improve your ability to compact waste, things like that?
We are, yeah.
Thank you.
You had previously told us that you were thinking about adding a compactor, and you had sort of a general schedule in mind. Is that changed?
Yeah, we do have a compactor and a shredder on site, and they're operational, and we have run waste streams through there for the federal side. I have not gotten that to be as efficient as it needs to be on the commercial side yet, and so we're still working through that process.
Okay. Judge, any questions? Dick?
Can I just have Charles alluded to expansion. What is the status of that? You applied to expand a while ago.
Yeah.
Where's that stand?
With some of the questions we got during the legislative session and things like that, it was obvious to us that there was some concern about volume capacity, and so as well as curies. So we filed a major amendment for the performance assessment, which added a lot of curies, and a file to expand the landfill itself from 2.3 million feet to 9 million feet. Both of those have made it through the administrative notice process. I think they're substantially through technical review, and hopefully they'll come out soon. I think the expansion one's probably taking a little bit longer, just engineering and things like that associated with it. It was further behind the other two that we filed. So, but I think those are all proceeding through the agency and the licensing speed that it goes.
In that connection, Rod, I'll just ask you, Mr. Doyle isn't here today, Commissioner Doyle, but he previously asked at one of our other meetings when you talked about that expansion, about the, I guess, the capital financing of the expansion, and asked you the status of that, and you said it was just too early at this point. And is there any change in that?
No, we have our existing facility has 3 phases, and so we've only built phase 1 of the existing licensed facility. So I'd have to go through the second and then on to the third phase before I'd even think about going into this other expansion area the amendment would call for. And at this point, given our calculations, analysis, forecast of what we see coming in, we don't think we'll ever expand past the currently licensed footprint. But I want to make sure that, you know, the capacity needs are solved and there's not a worry there that would hamper what kind of waste we could take. And so I want to have that kind of on the shelf ready to go if it's ever needed. But until we get ready to construct past this initial license piece, I really wouldn't need to think about trying to get that constructed or financed or anything like that.
As I recall, your current license, the one you're operating under now, was for a certain capacity, but then the construction phase of it was a subset of conditions under the license, if you will. Is that correct, more or less?
Yeah, basically it said before you start construction, you need to turn in certain reports and certain characteristics and stuff. Obviously, we completed all that before we started construction of phase 1.
Right, and you anticipate that the expansion license will have similar provisions in it?
I would expect so, yes. It'll have more detailed drawings required and things like that as we get out and determine exactly what we need to do, if we need to do something.
Those are all the questions I had. Does anybody else have anything? Thank you, Rod. And again, I assume that the company is just going forward. And Mr. Simmons' personality was kind of large, and he was a very generous man. And we certainly acknowledge his generosity to the people of the state of Texas. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those who aren't from Dallas and don't know the man very well, he did give a lot of money away. UT Southwest Medical Center was a favorite of his, the Harold Simmons Cancer Foundation, and I think an arthritis center, and he's named a couple of places as a SMU for his wife and himself, and very generous, that left quite a legacy, and so he will be missed. Obviously, at 82 years old and a billionaire, you have a succession plan in place. So, you know, his crew has been there for 30 years, and they understand where the ship needed to go and how it's sailing and what that entails, and so that continues to sail forward. So we're happy to still be here, and I know he would want us to continue on, and so we are.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Thanks, Rod. Okay. Chairman's report. Well, you've heard most of the chairman's report already. I'll say that we're still dealing with some issues. We're trying to complete the audit that we have hired to do last year. We've got reports that are due that contemplate an audit included within those reports, and we're trying to figure out the best way to respond and handle those things. We're at the verge of having those done, and that's the kind of thing that I've been working on. I did say that we're still proceeding forward on the rules. We don't have a definite schedule, Eddie, so you can report back that we don't, because we're still gathering information. We're learning, and we learned things today that will help us talk about issues associated with the rules. That's really pretty much all I want to say. We will talk about future meetings, because we are aware, Judge, thank you, about the problem with hotel space and South by Southwest going up for that particular meeting date. So we'll talk about that in future meetings. And so I'll let Lee talk about all those things. Go ahead, Lee.
There's a couple of reports outstanding that we're working on with the state of Texas that I'll mention to all of you. One of them is this comptroller's state auditor report about how the Board of Nursing conducts our financing and how it complies with state of Texas requirements. We have had some very productive and very helpful discussions with the comptroller's office, helping them understand that we're a federal compact as opposed to a strident, strict state agency. And they've taken some of our comments and put them into their thinking and presenting a preliminary report to us. We have not yet seen that preliminary report, but I expect to see it in the next little while. And we have an opportunity to respond back if we need to. But I will say that our conversations with the comptroller's office have been very good, and I expect a continued cooperative relationship with the comptroller's office as we move through that matter. Another interesting report request that has come out of the state of Texas for all state of Texas agencies is something called a risk assessment. And what a risk assessment is it's where you assess your state agency on what happens to the state of Texas if you go away. And in talking with other folks who do an assessment like this, the small agencies are required in the state of Texas to do these, and as you can imagine, we are a very small one. And sometimes when the state of Texas asks us to do reports, we sort of do a risk analysis as to how that might affect our independence as a commission. And my thought, and in discussions with the chairman on this risk assessment report would actually be a good thing for us to do. I believe it's a good idea because it puts out there and provides information that we can share with others about what we do and how we work. And anytime we have an opportunity to do that, I think in a way that doesn't affect our independence or how we have to make decisions, I invite us to do so. I think we should do it for this. And another thing that this will require is there are specialists who do this that are highly recommended. It's a professional contract that can be easily secured. So on the next agenda, on the next meeting, whenever that might be, you will probably see an agenda item that requests us to be able to move forward in hiring somebody to put together a risk assessment that would meet the state of Texas's needs, but I think it'll meet a lot of needs for us as well. The good news, too, is once you do one of these, you update them every year, and the updates would be very easy. So this would sort of be a one-time thing to do. So I wanted to make y'all aware that that's coming up on the horizon. The other thing I'll say is we've got the low-level forum meetings coming up. Some of you are going to be attending them March 17th and 18th, I think it is. And then, of course, there's a tour at WCS on March 19th and the Urenco facility. So some of you guys have already expressed an interest in coming. I want to invite all of y'all to be able to do that as well. We are having, our meeting with brokers, disposers, processors, and manufacturers of sources to talk about our rulemaking and what their needs are, almost an extension of the conversation we had during amendments today. The second week of April, beginning April 14th. The date has not been secured. I'm also that week, but it will be that week. I am also working with folks to potentially have tours of facilities in the Oak Ridge area for the folks that attend, so you can see some of the things you've asked questions about, you can see firsthand. And so that is also on the agenda. You'll see some things coming out about that Audrey and I will be sending out over the next few days. And then the last comment I just wanted to make, the amendment discussion that we had about the 3 amendments that came up and the fact that we didn't go through the 25-day notice. One of the things I suspect will happen is you will see more amendments that don't meet the full 25 days come in front of you. And I just wanted to prepare you for that. And I think it's a good opportunity for y'all to get to see them firsthand, ask questions of the folks requesting the amendment, and make decisions about what thresholds for amendments might be and what the appropriate notice would be. So I just wanted to let you know as your executive director that based on what I saw today, I will probably continue to work with our generators and brokers along this line, unless y'all were to say something to me today to change my mind, but direct me otherwise, I should say. So that concludes my report.
Let me just add something, because Lee talked about the possibility of hiring somebody to help us with the risk assessment. And even though we're not an agency, it's probably a good idea. We're learning more and more as we function because of the appropriation that exists, that the state of Texas considers that we have to do a lot of things because of the appropriation. And so we're learning more and more about what those are. And we're trying to figure out a cohesive, cogent, consistent way to respond, to continually remind somebody that we're not a state agency, but a number of these things are embedded in Texas law because of the appropriation, and we just have to recognize them, and that takes up a lot of time and effort, and sometimes it produces some interesting discussions. But one of the other things that we have said in the past, and you may see this coming up too, for the commissioners, is we've talked about somebody who would help us in our fiscal interactions with the comptroller and with the legislative budget board and other kinds of things like these issues that keeps coming up. So we may end up preparing a request for proposals to ask somebody to come help us, and I assume that if we do that, I'll be working with Lee and our attorneys general to help us come up with something, proposal, but you may see that in the future as part of our contracting efforts for additional help. We have done, and I'll say this also, with the low-level waste forum meeting, and this came up, we've made an arrangement with the forum to where anybody who registers, because of the way the reimbursement works, they've agreed to let us register for that meeting here in Austin, and then bill us for the commissioners' attendance who wish to attend later, and therefore it'll be handled in a different way than normally we would have to pay our own way to register for those things and then get reimbursed after attendance, and that can be a problem. So we worked out a deal with the forum to help us out. So don't, we can all let her know if you want to go, and there'll be room for you, and then they'll accommodate us and send us a bill afterwards. Okay. And I guess the next thing is meetings, future meetings, and let's talk about that. We have a March meeting scheduled, as I recall.
Yes, we do. The March meeting is currently set for Thursday, March 13th. To let you know some other activities that are related in that general time frame, the low-level forum begins the following Monday, the 17th. It also goes through the 18th, and then the WCS Urenco tour is Wednesday, the 19th. So those are all, and then of course, the most important event of all apparently is South by Southwest, which is happening the week of our meeting.
The interesting thing is we normally might consider, we don't have to meet in Austin necessarily. It's convenient for us to do this, but we can meet in Waco, for example. But given that we will be, a number of us will be here back in Austin on the 17th, seems kind of silly to schedule a meeting for some other place and then everybody go to that other place and then come for a meeting and come back. If we wanted to avoid South by Southwest, I don't think we fixed a place for the meeting yet on the 13th. We just know that it's tentatively scheduled. Do you have any thoughts about that, Lee? Are you leaving it up to the commission?
I serve at the leisure of the commission.
Would it improve things if we perhaps move the meeting up north to the TCEQ offices, if they might be available? Would that improve things?
I'm not sure that it would improve things logistically in terms of.
I will tell you that my hotel guy that I trust at the same hotel said that week you're going to be lucky to get rooms in North Georgetown, to the north, and to the south probably San Marcos and south.
San Marcos, Seguin, even Lockhart on occasion.
Yes.
It's just a horrible week, and the events that have turned into nightmares for us in Austin are the South by Southwest, the Austin City Limits Music Festival in the fall, which now goes 2 weekends, and then the F1 tracks when they have events out at the F1 track. People are buying houses in Austin for the sole purposes of renting them out to people who come in for those kind of events, because they can make so much money renting them out for those things, they can pay for the house. So it's just, that's the way it goes. And I do know for a fact that normally for a $120 hotel room, you have to pay $450 during F1 or some of those other periods of time for the same room. So the question is, what's the desire of the commission? We can change the location of the meeting. It doesn't have to even be in Austin, because quite honestly, air traffic in and out of Austin is a problem, as well as the hotel space during South by Southwest. They run an incredible number of people through here. Or we can change the day of the meeting. We can leave it the way it is, and we could suffer. And everybody can, I guess, people, if they get desperate, they could say, Wilson, do you have any spare bedrooms? And that's a possibility. And my wife might kick me out, but she does that anyway. And so.
Would it help the situation you mentioned to Linda, perhaps Waco, would it, realizing that people might have to go to Waco and then come to Austin, at least might improve it for the day of the meeting?
The difficulty is it's much more difficult to fly to Waco for people coming from Vermont. If people come from Texas, it's not a particular problem because we can drive there. But it's just I'm worried about our Vermont members. But so I'm looking to you, Dick.
I don't know. We'll be anywhere but Vermont in March.
All right. It sounds to me like what we need to do is leave it scheduled for the 13th as it is, and we'll discuss the location, and we'll let everybody know as quick as we know, if that's the consensus of the commission. We've all got it on our calendars. And
I know what you're saying. Let me put this out to you.
Sure.
Do it in Dallas or Houston, that way everybody can fly there and leave.
I'm not opposed to doing that. We'd have to find a venue in Dallas or Houston. As a matter of fact, I except for the fact that the low-level waste forum meeting is, there's nothing wrong with having it in Midland and or someplace like that. Although hotel rooms in Midland are on their average rates are 3 times what they are in Austin normally, and just because of the oil work up there. Yeah, and you know that. So, but I'm not opposed to doing it in Dallas. And Rod, you all have offices there too, I know, so it's not a big deal for you. Maybe you can help us think about that if we want to do it up there. Okay. So let's leave it on the 13th for now. Location to be determined, and we'll put the word out as soon as we make the decision, hopefully within the next week or so.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what about after March 13th?
May 8th?
Yeah, the next meeting is slated for May 8th.
Mr. Chairman, the May 8th has become a bit of a problem.
Well, John, if you can't attend, we just won't consider any import or export applications. How about that?
My preference would be to move it perhaps to the next week, to May
15th?
15th, if that would work for anyone else.
Works for me. I don't know about anybody else. Linda, Dick?
It's probably okay.
And we can't ask her for Peter or Jane, of course. We can put the word out and see, but if it's a problem for you, we need to consider changing it. Judge, is it all right for the 15th for you?
It's okay for me.
Okay. All right. We'll put it on May the 15th. We're generally shooting at Austin. What about June? Dick?
There might be some thought given to if you want to have another Vermont meeting, you know, make it kind of an annual event.
Yes.
To moving it around a little bit in seasons. Vermont, is a little sketchy through April, but, it's, very nice from about, you know, from about mid-May on. Mid-May might not be great, but, you know, we might want to talk, I can be in touch with you.
That's fine.
We want to do a Vermont meeting.
And we do want to do a Vermont meeting, and we're just considering when it might be. I already have a trip. I know I'm going to be up in New York, New York, New Hampshire area, in mid-August, so.
And as a reminder, we'll need a meeting in August or maybe late July for purposes of passing a budget, et cetera, for the next fiscal year.
So we'll put that into the mix. But, so right now it looks like we've got it on May the 15th, and let me see, we don't have anything in April, but in March 13th, is that right?
Yes.
So those will be the next two. The March 13th meeting is at a location to be determined. It may be Dallas, and then May back here in Austin. All right?
But we do have it here. I mean, we don't change March, it's still be at the Capitol. March 13th.
If you're saying
If we are in Austin, probably here, but I'm not opposed to the suggestion we meet at a TCQ. We'll just have to determine the location, and I meant universally location, city, and place within the city. And the reason I say that is South by Southwest can create some interesting problems in downtown Austin. I used to be able to listen to a number of bands from South by Southwest by sitting in my office.
If I can speak to the March 13th meeting, I mean, from what I'm hearing, if we had it in Austin or at the Capitol or even at TCQ, I'm not sure we'd have a quorum here because people couldn't get hotel rooms. And so it sounds to me, what I'm hearing, unless y'all correct me, is the location must be changed. And so what I was going to do was work with Rod and see about potentially moving it to Dallas. And so that.
I'm trying to, because we've always been all together for I don't know how many years, but most of these guys can get in and out of Dallas easier than get in and out of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And me too, and so my always default is to drive. So that doesn't bother me. I can, just think of it was here in Austin. I can stay the night in Brady, get up a couple hours early and still be here.
Well, let me ask Charles, TCQ, if we decide to relocate the meeting to Dallas, would we have to make any special arrangements with you guys, travel-wise?
No, that's
okay.
Fine.
I'm just asking.
We will be there.
Okay. All right. And our assistant attorneys general, we assume that you'd be able to help us out.
One or two of us will be there.
Maybe more. If you want to escape South by Southwest. All right. Well, let me see. That's the last item we had at number 13 on the agenda. Does anybody else? That's the last item on the agenda, so I guess we're done unless motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded, and please note the time is 12:30, and the earliest request I had was 1 o'clock, so I think we've done well.